Hi, everyone. Welcome to a KE Report webinar featuring Trigon Metals. My name is Corey Fleck. I am your host for this webinar. Also, our host over at the KE Report website, podcast, and radio show, where we have daily market commentary and also cover a number of companies, including resource companies such as Trigon Metals. I am joined by Jed Richardson, President and CEO of Trigon Metals. This webinar is also produced in conjunction with Focus Communications. Now, Trigon Metals is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol TM, on the OTCQB under the symbol PNTZF, as well as the Frankfurt Exchange under the symbol TZU2. Now, Jed is going to walk us through the commercial production that is beginning at the Kombat mine in Namibia. Commercial production was announced back on October 10th. You will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout this webinar. Please use the chat or Q&A feature within this platform to send me all your questions, and I will be interjecting those questions throughout Jed's presentation, as well as at the end of the presentation for a bit more comprehensive Q&A. If you're having any trouble sending questions, you can always email me directly at my email address, fleck@kereport.com. So everybody, thank you for joining us. I hope you all enjoy this webinar. There will be a replay made available to all of you. Jed, thank you very much for taking time to share the Trigon story and, more importantly, this commercial production at the Kombat mine. Jed, please take us away.
Thanks a lot, Corey. Let's get into it. I'm going to go through our standard presentation deck. You can find this on the website, but I'll add some focus and kind of fill out the story a bit on how we are production-wise. For those of you new to the story, we're still a really humble market cap of about 35 million. And just to put that in context, our projected EBITDA for next year is more than 2 times that amount. So we're trading at half of forward EBITDA. Now we have a good sized management position at about 5%. And our largest shareholder is Eric Sprott. We still have just about 10 million in cash, and that is a combination of the cash that we initially brought in from the silver stream that we completed, and then the cash that we've generated. We've now made 2 sales of 500 tons of concentrate. So things are going and growing at Kombat. A little bit about myself. I'm a mining engineer by training. I spent a good chunk of my career as a research analyst with Royal Bank of Canada and Cormark Securities, and then I've spent the last almost 5 years now working on Trigon, where we're exploring in Morocco, and then of course our production here in Namibia. Point out a few notables on our board. Our director Mohammed Ben Haref is the prospector who found the Silver Hill project, and he sits on the board of directors. David Shaw is an ex-Yorkton analyst, and he spent a good chunk of his career helping and founding, helping on the board of directors with First Majestic Silver. Then Larissa Sprott, daughter of Eric Sprott, also the president of Sprott Money, sits on our board of directors. The key person, really man of the hour, is Fani Mueller. He is our VP operations, a ex-Anglo engineer, a naturalized Namibian, so South African, moved to Namibia, and he's put this asset back into production, and I can also say done a really great job at it. And then Aidan Sullivan, I'll also point out, VP Investor Relations, a key contact as far as investors looking for info on the company. So hopefully it's not, this isn't new information for everybody, but Namibia, where we're located, is just a fantastic jurisdiction. It's home to B2 Gold's operations just south of us. It's one of the world's largest uranium producers. It's also a big diamond producer. There's a number of base metal deposits. Also a growing lithium producer and graphite. But we are right now the only copper producer in Namibia. It's a country, it's larger than France in the area. The population is less than 2 million people, so very small population, fantastic infrastructure. We have road and rail going to port. We've been shipping our concentrate out via truck, but rail is also an option there that we're looking at. And this is the restart of a mine that operated for over 45 years. So the Kombat mine operated profitably from the late 1960s up until about 2007. 12.5 million tons at 2.6% copper came out of the ground here, and we still have a resource of 12 million tons at around 2% copper. So a lot of life left in this mine, and then a lot of exploration that we're continuing. And I'll get into that as I go through the presentation. But notably, lots of infrastructure. There's over $150 million worth of infrastructure, usable infrastructure, that gave us a head start to get this asset into production, and we're still reaping the benefit of as we develop and build this project.
Jed, can you remind everybody why the mine shut down?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to hop around and tell a bit of that story in this slide here. This mine was built by Goldfields. It was sold to an Australian company called Weatherleys. Weatherleys saw this as an asset that could produce a lot more, and commissioned the building of a big production shaft. So the mine, through its history, operated with a mill that had about 1,000 tons per day of capacity. That's the mill that we started now. The shaft that they put in is over on the left side of your page, marked Asses Far West. It is a 800 meter, 2,000 ton per day shaft, like production shaft. So this is a big piece of infrastructure. It's actually I'm told it's the largest shaft in Namibia. And that's 2 times the size of the mill. So they were looking to do a major expansion of the project. That ended up bankrupting the previous owners. At the time, I can see it cost them about $90 million with cost overruns. They went into debt to do so, and they also really kind of scavenged the infrastructure from the main shaft 1 on this page, and used it for backup power, backup pumping for the shaft sinking. That put them in trouble, and they ended up flooding the mine, the shaft 1, and bankrupting the whole operation. So it went to the Namibian government. It was seeded into the precursor to Trigon called Kombat Copper, and we now have that piece of infrastructure as a sunk cost that gives us a head start on developing this whole asset. So, like where we are right now is you can kind of move from right to left on the page. We're mining the open pit. So average grade 1.2 heading into our mill. We're operating right now at 1,000 tons per day through that mill, all from open pit resource. We're actively working on dewatering the underground and starting up operations around shaft 1. that will add another 1,000 tons per day from that underground, and will expand the mill. So we're in the midst of expanding. We're getting our underground mining equipment this month, and then we're down to 170 meters as far as our dewatering of shaft 1, and that's going to be a material increase in production. So right now, as much as we're celebrating this production, there's a lot more to come. So we'll be producing just under 8 million pounds of copper from the open pit annually, and when we get to the underground, we'll grow from that 8 to 30 million pounds of copper, and that's owing to the doubling of the mill and the doubling of the grade, because we're 1.2 from the open pit, 2.6 from underground. So it's a big move. Now you were talking. Now I brought up the Asses Far West shaft, and that represents a third stage of growth that we're working on. So once we're done the dewatering of shaft 1, we'll be moving one of our pumps to dewater Asses Far West, and that has an ability to double the production again, because we know from past drilling that the grade does go up as we get deeper, and we've got that 2,000 tons per day of hoisting capacity. So an ability to grow the whole production to 4,000 tons per day, with a lot of it coming from this very high grade material that we're expecting in Asses Far West.
So the big growth for the company is this underground mining, right? This initial mining is really just to get started, and then hopefully to self-fund a lot of this move underground through these two different phases.
I don't want to belittle the open pit, right? This is it's a major achievement for us to get this into production, and we're cash flow positive currently from the open pit. But you are right. This was historically an underground mine, and returning to the underground is going to have a massive impact on production level, a massive impact on operating costs. It's going to bring our operating costs down, and then just an overall big impact on profitability. And I actually get into that nicely on the next slide. So for those of you who's been following this story, this slide is something that you're probably familiar with, and we spent some time working on these 2024 costs, right? And I think it caused some confusion, because in our previous calculation for 2024 costs, we looked at all of the costs, all of the capital and operating costs in developing the open pit. But now I can present to you, now that we've declared commercial production, I can present to you what our operating costs look like going forward, just from our open pit production. So not including the pre-strip that we did between May and August, the mill startup that we did in August and September. And now we can look at October, November, December, January, February, and March. So that's the 6 months of commercial production that we'll have in our 2024 fiscal year. And that sits at around $2.95 per pound of copper. And this takes in everything. This takes in our mining costs, our milling costs, and then in that $1.14 that you'll see there in the center of the slide, that is other costs, includes G&A, and it also includes the treatment and refining charges that you pay when you're selling concentrate and having it processed by a smelter. It also includes the cost of our silver stream, right? So silver accounts for just about 3% of total revenue, just by the value of metal in the ground, and we foresold that for $37.5 million, and we use that to bring the asset into production, and we net back 10% on every ounce of silver that we sell. And another thing that you should focus on this slide is that growth profile. So that looks at the open pit production that's begun now, the underground production that starts next year, and then what could it look like with production from assets far west in the shade, darker shaded material up at the top of the chart. But fantastic growth profile for a company with at really bargain basement prices right now. And then we have resources to support all of that, and that's highlighted below that. And you can see the open pit and the underground. Obviously, a lot higher grade and more tons in the underground, but a combined 12.2 million tons in measured and indicated resource at around 2% copper between the both, with a lot of growth beyond that. A question that I do get a lot is like, okay, how are we doing? What do we have left to pay for? So now that we've started cash flowing, the open pit is fully paid for. We've also spent a lot of the capital needed for the underground. Actually, we're just around halfway through that spend. We still have about $10 million on our balance sheet, and we're growing that by about $750,000 US per year. Just to back up, Trigon reports in US dollars. We sell a commodity in US dollars. Everything that we're talking about is in US dollars, outside of the share price. And we'll be getting the mining equipment, like I said, this month. We put together a lease agreement. So it's like an equipment financing for the underground equipment, and that'll start arriving in the next couple of weeks. And then we're building cash on top of the cash that we have to fund the balance of Assets West.
So Jed, when it comes to financing this, a lot of people are wondering about that too. So I assume you're going to get into that, but that's a question that's been floating around here.
Sure. So we put together the capital from the silver stream for the open pit and the underground. That was always the plan. And we've been able to stick to budget so far. So we're in good shape. What we do need to look out for is working capital as we start with the underground, because we ramp up the employment. We have everybody getting trained, and then we also have the cost of electricity from the pumping. We are working on a project finance facility for that working capital portion. So we're right as it stands right now. We're in great shape for this. The capital is already funded. Now it's just that working capital piece, and we're already making some really good progress on putting that facility in place.
So at least right now, the plan is to not go back to market. No dilution. You're looking at a finance facility.
That is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Gonna skip through the streaming slide unless there's questions about it, because I've already touched on that. The one thing I want to note to that is we have an ability to buy back half of that stream up until June 2027, and this was an important feature of putting that deal together. I am quite bullish on silver, less so than copper, but still bullish on silver. And we're going to be doing a lot of explorations. We want to be able to bring back some of that value for our shareholders, and with the cash flow that we should be generating by that time, that should be an academic process. Just we'll want to buy that stream back.
How much does it cost to buy that back?
About $28 million to buy it back.
Okay.
Now, looking at this slide here, you'll see that outlined green area. In that outlined green area in the center, that's where our operations are. It's about 6 kilometers of strike length in that area. That has all 12 million tons of our resource, all 10 years, 12 years of mine life is all in that outlined green area. We actually all have some really great exploration upside around that Access Far West shaft. And as soon as we're done dewatering that shaft and we can get in there and start drilling, which should be middle of next year, we'll start generating some results there as well. But what I want to draw your attention to is the shaded yellow, the outlined black, and then the other outlined green area to the I guess the left of the page, the west of the project, west end of the project. All of the red stars you see are at surface copper occurrences. We are currently drilling in the extreme east. You see the 3 stars on the east. We call that area Schlangenthal. That we've got drills turning there. We're very excited that we'll be able to find more mineralization in that area and hopefully build its own little satellite operation that can feed into the mill at by the number 1 shaft. Similarly, there's been some drill work in the past that's happened in that outlined green area called Grossetavi. There, as again, we can see some old German workings that go back to the 1890s, and we can see that we initially had thought that they were only recovering lead in that area, but we can see that there's also copper mineralization at surface. So we're excited that we can drill in that area as well, and from those 2 areas already have the ability to grow the production profile beyond what you're already seeing. So stay tuned. There'll be lots of exploration news, including exploration news from Schlangenthal in the coming weeks.
Now, are these mostly open pit potential targets, or would these be small underground mines?
To begin with, it would be open pit, because we're seeing the mineralization at surface. Even the first drill holes are only just starting to get to depth. But our belief is that we'll see the mineralization will mimic what we see at Kombat in some way. So a decent grade from an open pit, but potentially much more substantial once we get underground. So the drill holes will determine it, but early on it would be open pit. But our hope is that it develops into something underground as well.
Can you give us a couple insights on grade too? Because largely this is a higher grade mine, and a lot of that underground is higher grade too. So
Sure.
What sort of grade would you need to see in those drill holes to make it worthwhile to add to the production?
We'd want it to mimic what we have in the open pit right now. Like what you've seen is what we've seen is when we're at lower grades, it's harder to be profitable. Period. So we don't want a 0.6. We want like a cutoff of 0.8 and an average grade of over 1%. So that's what we're looking for.
Okay. Now, I guess just a timeline question then. This is early on exploration, it sounds like. How quickly could, let's say, a discovery, one of these areas be brought into production?
How quickly could it?
We talking 2 years, 3 years? Could you do it quicker than that? Or do you just not know right now? It's too early to tell.
It's hard to say. To be honest, I'd say the longer it takes, the thing that's going to slow us down is not knowing the ends, right? So The longer it takes means it's bigger.
Okay.
The short way to say
That'd be a good thing then,
right.
potentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's because it's going to be drilling. It's like we will have to permit, but the Namibian government has been fantastic, and because we have an operation in the area, it shouldn't be too difficult. The interesting feature that I'm quietly optimistic on is we have a rail line that runs the full length of the valley. So when we cross over to look at the Schlangenthal area, we have to go over the rail. Similarly, we have to go over the rail again when we're by Grossetavy. And I could see a scenario where we are where we delineate pits in those areas, and then we just do a shovel and truck operation into rail cars and have them moved up and down right into the mill, because the mill has a spur right into it as well. So the infrastructure pieces, again, like I said, the infrastructure is something that we keep on benefiting from, but it would also shorten timelines in getting something like this into operation. Like kind of on my own career, we ran for Alcan Rio Tinto, we ran a 6 kilometer conveyor. This would be way easier than that. Like just putting it on just putting it in rail cars and pushing it down the track into the mill.
Okay. So very simple, right? You want to keep this as simple as possible.
Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, that's Morocco. So that's Namibia. We've just achieved commercial production. I can even looking at we just achieved commercial production. We are in our Q3, so that means you won't have to wait the full. There's a prolonged period around Q4 reporting. So this is our Q3. First reports should be out before the end of January, but already I can point to profitability. So things are looking really good at Kombat. And I mentioned Fanny Mueller at the beginning. I'll mention him again. He's done really a fantastic job.
Sure. We'll get to a couple other questions on this production later on, though. I'll let you move on to Morocco.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Corey. I'll touch on Morocco. We've got 2 projects there. This is a grassroots exploration. We started work on Silver Hill in, I guess, 2021, and already had some really good success. We're currently drilling there and expecting results imminently from the Silver Hill project. And then Adana is a project we just got we just got that project in at the end of June of this year. So we've just been setting up at Adana. On Silver Hill, in that drill work, our best result was a trench. Was 13 meters, 2.7% copper, 34.5 grams per ton silver with some cobalt that came with it. At today's metal prices, I think that's just about $400 per ton of value, literally at surface. Similarly, we drilled about 2 kilometers away from that trench, and we get 14 meters, 1.1% copper, almost about 74 grams per ton silver. So some really great results in this area, and sizing up to be something of size. We did some geophysics in this area, and we've got an anomaly that is over 4 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and we're now drill testing that. So please stay tuned. We'll be drilling. If you can get a close-up look at that map, you can see that there's four kind of bright pink areas, those are chargeability anomalies where we've drill tested those, and we're looking for results literally in the next few days. So that'll give us an indication of what we're looking at here at Silver Hill. But already it's proven to be a really exciting project. Adana is new to the market. This is a massive area where we've just found vein after vein of high-grade mineralization. We've got grab samples in that area of rock that shouldn't be mineralized. That's 300 grams per ton silver with 22-23% lead, 564 grams per ton silver with 25% lead and 5% zinc. We control about 112 square kilometers of ground in this area, and we're going to get started working on that hopefully for next year. But it looks to be a really big project on the order scale of like a Coeur d'Alene, which was one of the big huge silver producing area in the U.S. But we're really excited about this project.
So, Jed, people are kind of wondering big picture, though, with these Morocco projects, bit of a different angle for the company. So how do you balance out your copper production, exploring for copper, growing your copper production, then with also exploring these other assets that are a bit more silver focused?
Sure. So we actually will put this to shareholders, but the view is that we'll ultimately spin out Morocco into its own entity. Like the exploration there is exciting enough that it can stand on its own. And what we would look to do is dividend it right to shareholders. So if you're a Trigon shareholder, you'll receive Trigon Morocco as a bonus, and then we can do focused exploration at a pace that makes sense for these projects, as long as the market is there for it, right? We've got it's like I think the original plan was looking at this as a kind of a slow build growth project that we could do alongside what we're doing in Namibia, but they're taking on a life of their own. They're projects that can stand on their own and need proper budgets to develop, and the view will be to spin those out so that they can move at an appropriate pace.
Okay, fair enough. There are a couple other questions that we'll quickly take here. One being, approximately how much capital would you allocate to moving these Morocco projects forward before a spin out in the next, let's say, year?
Right now, no more. We spent, like, on this drill program, we're doing about $300,000 worth of work, and that should be the last.
Are you going to be growing your land packages in Morocco as well?
Yeah, so we already have application for all of the ground around Silver Hill, and so we have priority over that land, and then in Adana, we'll see. Despite how large the land packages that we have, there's still more ground in there that's of interest to us, and because we can literally see the veins. So we're working on plans to consolidate that the area around Adana. We think this is a really big project.
Okay. Oh, a final question then. Any chance you could use these Morocco assets, maybe sell them, monetize them in some way to help pay for ACES Far West? Maybe more market dependent on that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's a lot of value here.
Everybody wants the cheaper capital to come in, right? I get that, but it is probably market dependent, and it's still early on. So how much could you monetize early on? All right. Hey, well, that addressed some questions. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Albert, for sending those ones in. You can move on now, Jed. Thank you.
Sure. More macro stuff just on why we're so excited about copper. And hopefully those on the line are familiar with this. But what I do like to point out of this, as much as, yes, we need lots of copper for electric vehicles, for upgrades to infrastructure, which is not spoken as often. But a really important part of our story is where our copper's coming from, right? We're in, for those of you not familiar, Namibia is Africa Light. This is a great infrastructure, really well governed, a mining country. So tourism was the number one industry. Mining is the second biggest industry. And we're looking at a world right now where we need a lot of copper, and the places we're getting it from are more and more difficult to do so. I spent a big chunk of my career working in Latin America, and where we've relied on copper coming from Chile and Peru for decades now. That's getting more and more challenging. Like, we can see issues that some companies are having in Panama, or throughout Latin America. The other country that people look to is Congo, and Congo is a very difficult jurisdiction. Fantastic deposits, but a very challenged place to operate without any with very little infrastructure that's usable. We're in a completely different reality in Namibia and Morocco. Both jurisdictions, great infrastructure, power you can rely on, great mining workforce, and governments that have been nothing but helpful. So just wanted to touch on that, and then just point out, yes, the whole market has been beaten up over the last year. But just on correcting our valuation to catch up to our peers, we've got a long way to go, and that's the kind of upside that's the kind of upside where people can make extraordinary returns, right? Where you've got a fantastic value proposition in an environment that needs to start reflecting better value for really the whole industry, and I think we're getting to that point. Okay, so that's the bulk of what I wanted to cover, Corey. Is there more questions?
There are some questions. Yeah, we'll get right into it here. First, just a little bit more elaboration on funding of the underground. Someone more specifically asked, does the company have enough cash to complete the underground phase 1 without dilution? I believe on that slide it looked like you did, but if you could just elaborate, please.
Yeah. So let's see. So I pointed out that we've got about 10 million. We're actually building about 750,000 US per month from the operation, right?
So that was a monthly number. That actually addresses a whole other question that we were going to get to. But the operational profit of 750 grand, that is per month starting in October, or let's say November?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, so we've got about 10 million, and we've got about 10 million expenses. So where we're not funded is the working capital, right? So these are all the costs that add up before you sell your first ton, right? And what we're working on right now is a working capital facility. Hopefully, we'll see an announcement on that in the next month or in December. But that would fund us. That would fund the working capital portion. So yes, we have enough to get into the underground. We do have some other levers. We have some options and warrants. I don't foresee us doing another capital raise. This is I know that's the answer that people are looking for. It's a terrible thing to, as a CEO, to go out and make that claim. It also chases investment banks away. but like, our plan is that we'll be able to fund this without coming back to the market.
Okay. Thank you. Since we're on this slide, that times perfectly with somebody want more elaboration on that next steps portion down here, more dealing with the ASIS Far West here, because it does show, I think someone was having a little trouble reading it, but it does show PEA needs to be done. There sounds like there still needs to be a lot of work done on that ASIS Far West. Can you take us through, maybe elaborate a little bit more on these?
Sure. So on the ASIS Far West, the first thing is we're now a couple months late on that feasibility study that we're expecting from SRK. We're hoping that they can deliver it this month, and that's going to be key. The things that will happen to get ASIS Far West in production is a further mill expansion, right? Which we're already in the midst of doing one, so it's something we have a lot of visibility on. And then the dewatering of the of that shaft, and then the drilling of the resource in that area, right? So we do need to drill that area out to a 43-101 resource. We have drilling that shows the mineralization continues, but we don't have that in our measured and indicated. The drilling is going to be what takes us the longest amount of time. So that's what's holding us up. Then I don't know. Sorry, I'm forgetting what your question was. If capital was part of that. But then there is the capital question as to where that capital comes from. Right now, because I'm looking at this as I want to have all of the funds in hand at the beginning of the year. I'm working on a project finance for that ASIS Far West number. The number that I've got here on the slide is our internal projection on that, and it's with some good in-house knowledge, right? We're doing the mill expansion right now. We're dewatering, so we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to cost, and we know what drill costs are. So it's a pretty good number, but we'll be seeing what that real number is from SRK, hopefully in the next few weeks. So that's something to look out for. But yeah, on the back of that, with the SRK report, we'll be working on project finance for that. And just to give context for that, why would you look at debt? Is even at today's copper price, when we're producing from the underground, EBITDA should be in the area of about $50 million annually. So that ASIS Far West is something that we should be able to pay for by the time we're with the cash that we're generating by the time we get through next year. So using debt here it shouldn't be that risky as long because we'll be generating so much cash over the balance of the year.
Okay, there was a question on debt. If there is any debt outside of that silver stream, and if you will need debt for working capital. So it does sound like you might bring in a mixture of
so
debt.
Right now there's not debt, but yes, we are looking at it and working towards it.
Okay. A couple, questions actually, just to clarify your year ends here. Somebody was saying the 2025 numbers look great and asking that your year begins April 1st, 2024, correct?
Yeah.
So would that tie into 2025?
So April 1st, 2024 is the beginning of our 2025. Yes.
Perfect. What price did you sell some of the copper, some of your production already?
We sold at $8,000 a ton. I can't remember what that is in pounds of copper.
Okay. Well, people can do the math on that then. Are you doing the math right now? It looks like
I'm doing it right now. Good.
That is early on. Now, how do you sell this copper too? Do you have certain agreements in place where it goes?
362.
362. Okay.
So we sell it. We sell it through a trader. So IXM is the trader that we're using, and we take it, and we actually get paid 90% at delivery to the port. And we're doing it in 500-ton lots.
Okay. So we can all run those numbers. On the slide with rising production and declining costs, somebody noted that these numbers look different than in previous presentations. I assume these numbers do move around with more research. Is this the case? Can you explain why some of these numbers might have moved?
Yeah. So probably not someone who was on when I was talking about it, because that is. I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. The 2024 number previously was a number that included all of our pre-stripping costs, all of our mill startup costs. So what we're presenting here is now with the declaration of commercial production, where we've kind of drawn a line. We've taken all those capital numbers out, where it's now, this is just our mining, milling, F4 since we've started commercial production. So this is an average of our projected October, November, December, January, February, and March numbers, and that has changed. The operating, there might be some small changes on there's a small change on the 2025 number, and that's just more clarity that we put into our projection.
Okay. Yeah, you're able to bring in some more real-time numbers now too, because you are producing.
Exactly.
Do you expect any more analyst coverage coming in?
Yes, we do. We did a trip for some institutional investors and analysts at the beginning of October. End of September, beginning of October, and we had some analysts on the trip there, so we're expecting some reports shortly.
Okay. I guess final comments here. And just to remind everybody, this presentation will be available. The recording will be available to all of you probably in the next couple of days. So be sure to check on the company's website. You can also come to my website, kereport.com, when that recording is available. But Jed, just summarize this all for us, please. This is very much an early on growth story, production growth story. You just declared commercial production last month, and you have some well-defined areas that you are going to be stepping into, the underground areas, phase 1, phase 2, and the other exploration. So if you could just summarize what investors need to be watching out for to make sure that, look, that this growth story is progressing the way that you have outlined it here.
Yeah. I'd say we've done a lot. In a period where arguably, I don't like to, I don't like to throw shade on other investments, but on a period where not a lot of companies have been active, right?
It's a tough market. We all know how tough this market's been.
Yeah. And, we were able to put that silver stream in, and give us capital, give us the capital required. Notably, like the inheriting all of this infrastructure put us in a unique position, and I think it's still difficult for investors to wrap their head around, right? Like, if it's too good to be true, it can't be true. Well, this is true. Like, we are producing, we are making money, we do have more growth ahead of us. Watch as we report. This is, you're hearing me say it. You'll see it in black and white over the next few months. The exploration is not something to ignore here either. There's a lot of value that's still being built by the drill bit, both in Morocco and in and around Kombat. So stay tuned. Lots of catalysts to look for. This is a, if we don't think of commodity stocks as those typical kind of Warren Buffett IRR type or return on equity type of investments, but that is in fact what we've built here, right? And watch and learn.
Okay. Yeah, and the financial numbers are going to tell a lot here, right? So, yeah. Hey, Jed, thank you very much for walking us through here. I'm going to have you back on my show to keep updating everybody, too, on how the financials are moving forward, how production is running, and this overall growth story. So, Jed, thank you for your time. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to this webinar. If you have any follow-up questions for Jed, please email me directly. Again, fleck@kereport.com. And Jed, hey, I'll touch base with you as we get some more news, especially on the financials.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Corey.